turning a family recipe into a food business is not an uncommon way for people to start a food business. But I think for today's guest, it's something deeply personal. And Elaine Rummy, who's joining us, is the founder of Vi's Jamaican Rum Cakes. She's been balancing the challenge of building that food business with her career since 2019. Her cakes are a really special treat, baked in small batches in Cumbria, the Rummiest cakes in Cumbria, I believe, to a traditional recipe, and they're generously infused with the finest Jamaican white rum. In fact, they come in Rummy, Rummier, and Rummiest flavors, I believe. So welcome, Elaine.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me, Stephen.
What were you doing before you founded Vi's Jamaican Rum Cakes?
Well, I'd lived in France for over 20 years before I moved to the Lake District. So I moved to the Lake District in January of 2019. And before that, for 20 years before, I was in France, as I say. Did a degree in French at the University of Bradford, French and Spanish, actually. And in 1998, I left, went as an au pair. And then 20 years later, there we go, come back to England. But whilst I was out there, the last 10 years, I started off as a business English trainer, and that moved into coaching. So I was, when I came here, I was doing coaching.
Had you ever thought about starting a food business, or?
Absolutely not. That idea came from my mum, who was my inspiration. So the reason why this company is called Vi's Jamaican Rum Cakes is because Vi was my mum. Sadly, she passed away in 2018, and that kind of that's when a lot of changes came into my life, and that's why I ended up living back in England. But at her funeral, there were so many people that were just raving about her cakes. Oh. And I think that was just like, it was a celebration of her life, her funeral was. It wasn't, obviously there were sad moments, but it was more of a celebration of her life. And so, yeah, that just inspired me to, as I always say, turn my loss into a legacy. So that's where the inspiration for the business comes from.
So how did you set about turning that family recipe into a product? Was it a fairly easy process? Did you have to adapt the recipe?
Well, it's actually an ongoing process, and it wasn't easy, particularly for me, because I had no baking skills whatsoever. One of my sisters, she used to bake the cakes with my mum, but I just used to lick the spoons, and eat the cakes. That's all I used to do. So yeah, it was a challenge. So I got my sister to help me to start to make them, do some tests, and yeah, just went from there. I did some tests out in the local community with some networking groups. Got inspiration for the names of the cakes, because when they tasted them, they were like, oh, they're delicious, oh, they're divine, oh, they're decadent. So I ended up with a whole group of adjectives that became the names of the cakes. Two of the names are in French, and that's just to kind of bring in my whole French experience as well in there. So it wasn't easy, particularly for me, but that's probably why as well that's definitely why I decided to hand the recipe over to some expert bakers 10 minutes down the road. So they were the ones who were making the cakes, and I was kind of like the quality controller, I guess, and then doing everything else. Literally, they just made the cakes and wrapped them in the wrappers that I gave them. I really wanted to have something that was like sustainable. So I chose a biodegradable, home compostable packaging. So they made the cakes, they wrapped them, plus they had a gluten-free kitchen as well, which was certified. So I was able to start first, straight away with the gluten-free recipe and the non-gluten-free recipe as well. So
was the recipe written? This might be a daft question, but was the recipe written down, or did you have to kind of reverse engineer it, or?
Well, you asked some brilliant questions, because it was written down, but we had to kind of like reverse engineer, because my mum didn't make one cake at a time. So the recipe wasn't for one cake, it was for like 3 cakes of a particular size. So now to try and get that into one cake of a different size, that was a a whole nother thing. And plus, it's really technical. I really didn't realize how technical, cake making is, like baking is. You can't just take like a recipe for one cake that you made at home, or however many, and just get it into a commercial kitchen and for them to turn out exactly the same. In some sense of the way, I'm still trying to find my mum's recipe, how the cakes tasted when my mum made them, because it's just not the same.
Oh wow.
Mm.
So just, how have you found working with a commercial? It's handmade. It's not a kind of mega kitchen
no.
bakery type thing.
No. Yeah,
How have you found working with manufacturers?
Well, so our relationship has changed actually, as things do. They evolve, at different stages. So they were really lifesavers at the beginning. They were the ones who enabled me to get this business up and running as quickly as it did. So yeah, but one thing that I would say is that I didn't have control over what was going on to the extent that I do now, because I actually make the cakes myself now. So since just December of last year, I've been making the cakes myself, and I can see the difference. I mean, it's a balancing act, because there's so much more work to do when you do everything yourself, which is why I got this called on this company. But what I've exchanged now is that I've got more work to do, but I've got more control as well over the timings, the suppliers, just everything really. So
yes. And you mentioned you got more work to do at the moment. It sounds like you've got quite a lot on your plate in terms of your career. What you're running Vise alongside what other things?
well, I do have a full-time job at the newly formed Westmoreland and Furness Council. Before, it used to be Cumbria County Council, but we've just had some changes. So I'm a health and wellbeing officer, which is a coaching role. And I also have my private coaching clients, and I also run a support group for women who have endometriosis, and other things as well.
Wow. So how quickly were you able to go from thinking, I'm going to do this, I'm going to take the cake, I'm going to turn it into a product, to actually having something on sale?
I decided to set the company up on what would have been my mum's birthday. So I remember it's the 7th of December, 2019. And I said I sold my first cake like just 2 weeks before the lockdown. That was March. So a few months, really. A few months before. Yeah.
That's pretty good going, especially with an external manufacturer as well. So
yeah, well, I was just really really fortunate that everything's on my doorstep.
and how much did you know about who you're going to sell them to, or how much kind of market research had you done?
The only market research I did was with the few networking groups that I made the cakes for, and that's where I actually came up with the idea from getting the Rummy, Rummier and Rummiest, because when they tasted them, there was all sorts of feedback, all mostly good, 99% good, coming back. But I thought, there are some people that like more rum or stronger rum, or less and weaker. So that's where the Rummy, Rummier and Rummiest comes. So the rums that I use, percentage, it's about the percentage of rum that makes the cakes either Rummy, Rummier or Rummiest. So I didn't do like any official market research. I just got people to taste them and got their feedback. And this was something that I found really helpful when I decided to. So the first year, it was a bit of a, it's really difficult. The bakery couldn't even open when the first lockdown. We had the first lockdown, if you can remember, so I didn't have anything to sell. But then by Christmas time, that Christmas, everything seemed to be online. So I did loads of like online markets, and that worked really well. So the next year, when everything opened up, I went into the community and I started to do local markets and local events, and that was just a bigger version of what I'd done in the networking groups. Got so much feedback, and then I constantly getting feedback and adapting.
You were selling at markets, but people could taste as well, I guess.
Oh gosh, yeah, always, yeah. And that's when I got ideas. For example, people saying, "Oh, these fruitcakes, they would go really well with cheese." And I'm like, cheese and fruitcake.
I'm from Yorkshire, so that seems perfectly logical to me. So.
Yeah, and that's what people were saying, and I tasted it, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So what I've done is paired the cakes up with different cheeses. So that's things like that. When you get out into the community, you get so much feedback.
What about pricing? Did you kind of get the pricing right from the start, or did you price it based on the cost of making it plus some margin, or did you adapt it to what else you were seeing? Or
yeah, well, at the beginning I was just selling all of them at one price, but then kind of look at the figures and it's like, well, if I keep selling like that, I'm not going to have a business. So against my wishes and against even like advice, I put the prices up. And I said, well, if anything, worst case scenario, nobody will buy them, and I close the business, and it was a good try, or people will continue to buy them. And fortunately, it was the latter, that people buy at the prices that I offer them at. The prices, I mean, I paid the bakers a lot. I was buying the cakes for quite a high, price from the bakery. So I had to, to enable the business to survive. I couldn't go below a certain amount.
Yeah.
That has now changed as well. Now that I can make the cakes myself, then there's also more scope for margin, because before I did actually used to put them into retail, but there was so little margin left, it just wasn't worth it. So now that I make them myself, I can actually put them into retail again, and it'd be more worthwhile. So,
and you're still selling online as well?
Yeah, my main channel is online. There's online, and then there's the Christmas time, basically. But at the moment on the website, everything says sold out, because I'm doing a lot of work behind the scenes at the moment, and plus with my new job and everything, it's just a juggling act. So my focus is going to be Christmas, because that's when the sales just like explode. I do have a few events that are lined up. So if there's anything left over from those, then yeah, I'll put them online. But essentially, yeah, just a lot of work going on behind the scenes, because I'm on my own in this company. So, but I think the best thing to do, people are interested, just to sign up and then I send like newsletters, updates. So yeah, the website is working, but there's nothing to kind of buy on it at the moment.
What external support have you turned to in terms of I noticed there's some crowdfunding been going on. What aside from the bakery, who else has kind of helped you with the business?
Well, what was the Cumbria Chamber of Commerce, they really helped. I had an advisor for every year, I think, and that was a free service, so that was absolutely amazing. Really great support, especially when you're doing everything on your own and you don't even know what you're doing. I have no idea what I was doing. So fortunately, I had an advisor who was in the food business, which was absolutely perfect. So
how did you find? Did they find you? Did you find them? Did you know that there was help out there?
I can't remember actually, but I don't think they found me. I think I found them somehow, just through searches on the internet of how to support for new businesses. Oh no, it wasn't that. It was at the time I was on Universal Credit, and so it was through the job centre that they put me in contact with them when I decided to set up the company. So that's how.
That's a very positive. I mean, presumably up and down the country people have got access to that kind of thing, but maybe just don't know about it.
Yeah, maybe. Well, the website, I used first of all, I had what's that company called for the websites? The
Shopify.
Yeah, Shopify, thank you. But then I was like, no, I've got too much to do. I can't keep doing everything. So I found a local company, a Cumbrian company. So they built the website. And yeah, my designer who did design the logo and all of the branding and everything, all of those people I found, because I work with different local companies, and I found them through networking in the area. And then there was the NatWest Back Her Business match funding campaign, which I'm really fortunate to get on that because it doesn't exist anymore. But so what you had to do was raise £5,000. You had to have 100, if my memory is correct, you had to have 100 people to raise £5,000 over a certain period, and they would match from that. So in fact, I raised £6,000, so they gave me £5,000, and from that I was able to buy a delivery van and get it all branded. So,
that's interesting. That's not the first thing I'd think of when raising money for a food business. So that kind of that helps you. You're delivering to shops, delivering to people,
just everywhere. Yeah, and the thing is, it's so important because in the community, if you got branded, even if it wasn't, I'd be around in the community and the people would be seeing me. So it was like it was a marketing kind of thing as well.
Brilliant. How much importance would you place on branding and marketing? I mean, how has that been a help, or has it really been something that's about your connections locally that's sold the products?
I think it's an important part, and for me, everything for me is intentional. The colours, the purple, the purple is actually like violet, and it comes from Vi. So Vi and the violets. My mum loved flowers, so there's a flower on there as well. And the gold as well. The gold and white, they're just colours that I like actually. But I think the branding is really important.
Very luxurious. It's
it is kind of luxury colour, isn't it?
And what are the plans for the next couple of years? Can you look that far forward, or?
I can try, but who knows what will happen, So as I said, there's quite a lot going on behind the scenes at the moment, and I've actually just come off a call with the University of Cumbria because they've got a researcher who is looking at making vegan and gluten-free cakes. So that's really exciting. So that's the plan, is to have a new type of cake, hopefully for January, which is obviously in January. So that's the main thing. And also another idea that I'm working on at the moment is to transform the company into a social enterprise. So I'm also working with people to get that going as well, because I'd love it to be a community project and to have more people on board.
What would that mean in practice in terms of running the business?
Well, that would probably mean making the cakes in this. I found a space already, Kendal down the road, where they have a kind of like a community cafe. So it would be making the cakes, selling them there, and getting volunteers to help to do that, especially those who are feeling like isolated in the community, who want to meet people, make friends. So just a space to make the cake and sell them with volunteers.
Brilliant. That's really interesting. I think it's time for some questions. There's a couple in the chat. Sally asks, Sally in fact says, your cake sounds yummy. Do you plan to do any food trade shows this year?
I've already done one, and it was the Lakes Hospitality Trade Show. Last year I was at the NEC on the This Is Cumbria stand, but what I'm finding is that these they're really expensive, and because I'm not making the cakes in as great a quantity as I was before, then I don't have the cash to outlay, and I don't really want to get into debt. I want this to become like a debt-free I did have a loan at the beginning, which is paid off now. So I'm trying to keep everything, if I don't have the cash, then I don't do it.
Yeah.
So what I've decided to do is to do local events that don't cost, very much, but there is an event that does have a cost to it, a greater cost, which is the Lakes Hospitality Trade Show, which I did, I think it was in February or March of this year. And I really love that one. So I'll be doing that next year. But no, I haven't really planned on doing any other major events this year, but that might change next year.
Yeah. I've realised there's one question I wanted to ask, which is, how did you meet Theo Paphitis?
Oh gosh, yeah, Theo, that was a real surprise, because I discovered that he does this. It's called Small Business Sundays, like #SBS on Twitter, and so you just respond to his tweet with your story in a set amount of words, and then he chooses 6 winners on the Monday. So I did that. That was in 2020. I think it was 2021. And so I entered 7 times. On the 7th time, which was on Mother's Day, I was chosen to be one of the winners. So I was really happy about that, because obviously this is all about my mum. So and so because of COVID and that, we couldn't actually have the annual event until, I think it was 2 years after, or a year after. So I ended up meeting him last year, having a picture taken. I gave him some cakes, actually. Oh. And it was lovely. He wrote a letter back to me thanking me for them, and so it's really nice.
You don't fancy going on Dragon's Den then?
Well, not really. I did kind of. They did actually contact me, but I need some help with the figures and things like that, and you've got to really know your figures, and that with everything that's going on, it's just not possible for me to do that at the moment. But
put it on the to-do list, the bucket list. Yeah. Is the sort of food business, it seemed quite lively in Cumbria?
Oh man, it's massive. I mean, gosh, everywhere you turn here, there are artisan companies of really high quality. They've all won awards. They've got the Michelin star restaurants. I think it's probably the area in the country where there's the most Michelin star restaurants. So it's a very foodie county. So I'm really privileged as well to be here, just to be around that, because that has an influence as well on how I show up in the market. Excellent.
And we got one more question. Hussein asks, are you thinking about expanding outside of Cumbria?
Oh, well, the cakes are delivered all over the country. They're mail orders, so I'm based here, they're made here, but they've been shipped out to the Isle of Man, to the Isle of Wight, all over the country. So already a national market.
So when you look at going into retail, I guess you probably start locally, will you? And
yeah, I will. Yeah, definitely start locally, because I've got contacts as well. As I said, I've been in, local farm shops and different companies, retailers. So I would start locally.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks to everyone for their questions. So thanks, Elaine. Thanks for joining us. I know you're busy, and really appreciate you taking time out to join us this morning. If anyone wants to try Vi's Jamaican rum cakes, you probably can't at the moment.
You will be able to in about a week's time, because I'm making some on Tuesday. So
brilliant. So keep an eye on www.visjamaicanrumcakes.co.uk, and you will be able to buy some of those Rummier or Rummiest cakes there. On the Frog Hop website, there's lots more resources for food founders at froghop.co.uk/resources, and all the other previous Food Founders interviews are available wherever you get your podcasts. Search for Food Founders interviews, or go to froghop.co.uk/podcasts. Thanks again for joining. Thanks for joining us, Elaine. It's been really interesting, and I'm excited to see what happens next.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed it. So thanks for inviting me along.
Brilliant. And I'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.